creating a culture of love.
What I think the listener and everybody can relate to, if you just take a moment to think about who you are right here, right now, like who I am right here, right now, sitting on this show with you, is also every past version of myself. Every version that was doing great, that I loved, resonated with, every version that I hated, every period of my life that I was in pain and suffering, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, every breakup, every promotion, every degree, every move, everything ever. Like that is still here. And the beauty is, like, if we can recognize that, make peace with it, that is the future self we get to build. So here's a moment in every moment in time to recollect every past version, honor that, respect it, because you can't change any of that. But that is your moment. That is your opportunity to choose the future self that you're going to build.
Chase Chewning, welcome to the show.
Long-time listener, man. Big-time fan. So glad to be here.
Do you subscribe?
I do, actually.
Yeah.
I do.
Download, likes, all the things.
This just goes to show you, if you hang out in the audience long enough, that you might just get called up, you know. Do I win a car now?
No.
No? Damn. I've been watching too much Oprah. I don't know.
You get a book. You want a book? I got a hoodie for you.
I would love a book, but if I do, my wife is going to kill me. I have so many books right now. I'm just like stacking on top. I got to get a new bookshelf.
I know you are always collecting, but do you actually read them all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There are about, at any given moment, I'm reading probably 2 to 3. Sometimes I'll need to double down a little bit because the nature of my work, it literally is work. It's prep. It's getting ready for an interview or interacting with somebody. So I kind of need to like jump my own line a little bit. But yeah, I got one in the front of the house. I keep one in my backpack when I'm traveling. Usually 1 or 2 on my nightstand that I want to kind of dive into to chill out. So yeah, just always learning. I love knowledge.
That's what I'm doing with Audible. I'm in the middle, like 8 books, 7 podcasts, 8 YouTube videos, you name it. It's like constantly trying to devour knowledge.
All at our fingertips, man.
Do it on my walks.
Yeah.
But, well, welcome to the show. You know, you are a behind the scenes partner, so it's great to get you up in front. Thank you for, you know, first I got to give you the shout out. We're bringing this to life. You're a big catalyst to this, right? So you're a big believer in it, and you've been podcasting for a really long time.
This month is 6 years.
That's amazing. Yeah. OG.
About, and I think I won't say I was an early adopter, but definitely before what we've seen in the last like 2 years, really.
The 8 to 10 year range, I think, are the true OGs. Yeah. But like, you're close. 6 years is still.
Yeah. And that's just when the show went live. The concept of podcasting, me as a podcaster, and even beginning to toy around with recording and editing and interviewing and solos and all that stuff happened even the year before. So there's a lot that never saw the light of day. It never will. But from going live, yeah, here we are 6 years later, man.
You know, and it's practice and it's putting in the reps. But for our audience that doesn't know who Chase Chewning is, can walk me through a little bit about your background, how we ended up this, you know, podcasting, Chase?
That's a question, I ask myself all the time. I was telling you, a mutual friend of ours was over at my house the other day looking at said bookshelves of overflowing books. And I was like, yeah, this one is more for work and this one's for fun. They're all for fun, I should say. But I just caught myself going, this is what I do for a living. And, to be podcaster Chase is such a weird thing. And even just a few years ago, to think that it would be really my main thing, majority my only thing, it's just so far-fetched because it's not the path that even just a few years ago I was actively in pursuit of, or what I went to school for, what I went to grad school for, or, even before that in the military. I mean, definitely I didn't know what a podcast was when I swore in to Uncle Sam, but I guess that's kind of the reverse engineering high level me. Where I am now and what I do, in getting to know you, how we met was through my show, and then just your work and your mission always stood out to me. And I was like, we got to do something together. So thank you for your faith and belief in me on that. But it was just, it's this continuous pursuit, which I think works so well for why we're here to talk about living through love, is just, that's ultimately what it all has been, unbeknownst to me at the time, just continuously in pursuit of what I love, or finding what I didn't know I love doing. And the love that it gave me, there's like this love that I found in creating and doing and podcasting and social media and online entrepreneurship and all the things that have happened really since I think like 2012, 13 with the social media opportunities, creatives, if you will. It's just been, looking back, just this constant pursuit of, oh, I wasn't in love with that. That's why I didn't light up the way that I do now. I'm so in love with what I do and the person that I am and the person that I'm becoming now. And it's because I'm leaning into love and acts of love and creating out of love and getting that reciprocated. Like the things that I create, the feedback that I get, and just, you know, being so proud of the work that I do and how I spend my time nowadays. I feel like I love that and it loves me back. And thinking of like living through love, I think that's ultimately what we're all after, right? Is like, I want to love this thing. I want to love this person. I want to love myself. But like the sweet spot is when them collectively loves me back. It's just this exchange that I have not been able to tear myself away from. And so just staying in pursuit of that the last few years has just landed me here, man. But before all that, you know, I've worn a lot of different hats, quite literally, patrol caps, berets. I was active duty Army for 6 years, right after high school. And, you know, without going into too many details, you know, my choice going in 2003 was not, I think, the typical at the moment, super like, I'm a patriot, want to go to war, want to defend all this stuff. It was kind of just my situation at the time. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had a couple ideas. My family didn't have a whole lot of money, but I knew that my dad, quite literally, he told me, Chase, you go look at college. If you get in, it's what you want to do, I'll figure it out. But that was his way of telling me. I interpreted, we ain't got a college fund, son. You know, it's not there, but you know what? You're capable. And if you can prove it to me and to yourself, then we'll make it work. But so I leaned into that, and it was a family legacy. He was in so many generations before me.
And there's the education perks from it too,
exactly.
right?
And I was like, you know, I was looking at college, looking at some ideas, trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. I don't know if I ever told you this. Actually, before I enlisted, I was looking at this school that I ultimately went to after the military. Shout out VCU. And I was wanting to go into their graphic design program. I had a little artistic streak in me. My grandmother was a painter. She painted like so many amazing oil paintings all throughout our house. And I did art classes, you know, all growing up. And I was decent painter. My thing was kind of sketching. And so I was like, oh, let me do graphic design. VCU's got a great art program. Let me go into that. But I didn't love it enough. I didn't love it enough. I didn't love it more than the idea of what this would do for my family. I didn't love it more than I loved my family at the time. And so I leaned into that, swore in at 17, went off to boot camp, did my thing. Unfortunately, a couple of years into that process, my father became terminally ill. He passed away from ALS. Lost him when I was the age of 19. And I mean, that was probably my first great loss. Love loss for sure. He was my homie, my best friend. He was my boss. He was an entrepreneur for many years after he got out of the Army. And that just like really looking back now was the moment I gave up loving myself. And it didn't seem like that at the time. What it actually was me getting so selfish with myself and doing things that I perceived was going to benefit others. What I mean by that specifically was the loss of my father sent me down this spiral of just no mental health, not acknowledging anything, no grief.
To escape it. You were trying to escape it all?
I would do anything and everything to just avoid talking about him, death, his death, just watching a movie with a death scene, even hearing the word terminal, death, dying was just like, I I would just go to dark places. I would literally have out-of-body experiences, blackout, panic attacks. Years later, diagnosed PTSD. And so I put myself on a very destructive path out of self-righteous positioning, thinking that, oh, if I go do this thing, like I'm in the most dangerous job in the world right now. And I'll never forget this moment. I was doing what's called your birthday month checklist in the military. And every year, it's kind of like your life physical. Go take care of logistics, your life insurance, your health, get your physical actually, and just do all this paperwork stuff. And at the time, I think this was 2005 or 2006, they upped the life insurance policy in the Army. I think they literally doubled it to 400,000. And in the back of my mind, this poor financial health in a lack of growing up in a trailer park, Chase, or not, I should say trailer park, like double wide, it was like, oh, Chase, if you die,
you're worth 400,000.
You're worth $400,000. That is a shit ton of money that will help your family. And that just imprinted on me immediately. And so I then, thinking it was the right thing to do, the patriotic thing to do, what a oldest son needs to do to like take care of his family while he can't get out of what he's doing right now. And so I actively pursued deployments, and I actively pursued like changing jobs and doing different things to like go put myself in harm's way. Again, not because I was like, I will die for this country. I mean, that was always the given.
No, but for your family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in pursuit of that, things were looking pretty promising. And I was doing war game training, and I was getting promoted. I was doing all these things to get closer and closer and closer to going over there. And in one of these war game trainings, just a few days out in the field, I, was leading this ambush, was sleep deprived, dehydrated. We call it in full battle rattle, all my body armor, my weapon, my rucksack, all this shit. And, when I tell the injury, when I tell what happened, it's way more like badass than the actual scenario, but it is what it is. I was the squad leader. I popped up we were hiding behind just this row of like foliage and like a little berm, like leading an ambush against this fake enemy coming through this lane. We're like in the middle of nowhere, desert, Texas or something. And all of a sudden I popped up, and as fast as I popped up and was leading this ambush, I heard and felt this pop, and I came crashing down to the ground, like blacked out, screaming in pain. I was like, who the hell put a live round in? I literally thought I got shot. I was in such immense pain. I was like grabbing the back of my leg, tore my hamstring, popped, rolled up. Wasn't a complete tear, but like rolled up enough to like just have massive swelling. And next thing I know, I was being medevaced out. And so that immediately right there pulled me from any possibility of that deployment.
Yeah.
And so then also, like, it wasn't just my hamstring. I found out, did a lot of things to my L4, L5 vertebrae. Ultimately wound up having to have reconstructive surgery in both of my hips. So like they removed my femur, reshape it, put it back in. I've got 2 rods in both of my hips.
Damn.
The last like year and a half of my military career, I was just a patient. And so in my pursuit of self-destruction, of wanting to come back home wrapped in a coffin in an American flag with hopefully a $400,000 check from my family, man, I just jacked my shit up. And what I went through sucked. It really, really did. I had to learn how to walk again twice. A year and a half of just being a patient, and just like in the hospital, in rehab, at home, in bed, having to rely on other people to help get me out of bed, to bathe me, to go to the bathroom, to like do certain things. So that ultimately deemed me non-deployable. And at that time, especially if you're non-deployable, the Army's like,
you're donezo.
I can't do shit with you. I'm sorry. Thank you for your service, but move along. So I was actually medically retired at like age 24. Then that was the catalyst for me to not accept this new hand that I had been dealt. I kind of had this realization of, all right, I tried really freaking hard to go down that path, but it wasn't my calling. It, for whatever reason, wasn't me. And so I really did not like where I was physically. I did really not like where I was mentally, emotionally. But recognizing the physical detriment at the time more, moved back home to Virginia, went to VCU, not for the graphic design program, but studied exercise science, and just fell in love with the human body, the human potential. I was like, damn, wait a minute, hold on. If I actually learn this meat suit a little bit better, I can take charge of my rehab. I can, do things that my physical therapist and doctor said I either wasn't going to be able to do or would be years off. And then it kind of just like was this self-fulfilling prophecy, or like this self-fulfilling cycle of like, I love this thing loves me back. Then I get to be a role model for others. And so I then kind of became a coach and a trainer and got into the health and wellness industry and wound up going back to grad school for health promotion and nutrition and became a certified health coach. And for years ran this concierge medical practice, their wellness department, working every day with people wanting to, nurse an injury, lose a couple pounds, build some muscle. We would do exercise physiology testing, corporate wellness programs, all that. And in all of that, it was just this constant pursuit of, I don't think we know this at the time. I was just learning how to love myself. And I was learning what lit me up, and I was learning what I love to do, how I love to do it. And the day came and I was like, you know what? This job, I love what I do. I love working with people. But I'll never forget, I had this moment sitting in my car, and this was the moment that I knew I got to get out of my job. This is not meant for me. I pulled into the parking lot, stared up at the building, looked at my phone and my roster, the clientele for the day. It's like, I love her, love him. We've been killing it. She's been having such immense progress. This one client lost like 100 pounds. But I was like, the second that I go into that building, they're just going to like yank out my heart. Them being like the business and all the, because I was in a leadership position.
Yeah.
And I can't show up for that person, for these clients, as that person. It's not fair to them. And to be overworked and undervalued, especially in the industry of helping other people, was just something I could not do anymore. And so I made a little like kind of promise myself. I was like, all right, Chase, go in there and you're going to help these people and you're going to do what you know how to do, but you're going to build your exit strategy. I told myself and my wife 6 months, 30 days later, I gave my notice, or excuse me, 3 months, I gave my 30-day notice. That was a fun conversation. Imagine telling your wife you got a 6-month plan and then it winds up being barely 3 months. And then, I just haven't looked back since, man. And just dove headfirst into, had already started the podcast at the time, had begun to finally start charging my services for like coaching services, and built an online coaching brand for a couple of years, and then just poured everything I got, because I realized what I love doing the most is just learning and connecting with other people and sharing my story and learning theirs, then packaging it in a way to send out into the world. Honestly, man, wrapped in love in a way that, people maybe haven't yet been able to receive. But luckily, platforms these days and the way that we can present things is finally the way that I think we can all learn how to receive them. You know?
No, that's the most important thing. Like, there's a lot of us that are wired to give, not receive. There's a lot of people that take, don't give. Taking is much different than receiving. And then just being able to like give it and fill your own cup, and accept other people filling your cup. But what I'm hearing, because I could relate with some of that, I studied exercise science, right?
Yeah.
I got the kinesiology degree and the biomechanics, and I was a trainer. And if we look at now and unpack that, one of your favorite parts of probably dealing with your clients were the conversations you were having. Because to me, it wasn't like 1, 2, 3. No, it was like, they were telling me their problems. We were getting deep in it. Like,
honestly, as a trainer, I was not good.
I was a psychologist, basically.
It's like, it sounds weird to say out loud, but like, I didn't care enough to dissect the biomechanics of how we move, why we move, to build the most elite training program that's going to deliver the best results. Because I, at the time, I was already past that. And maybe this wasn't fair to my clients at the time, but I was just like, why don't we just kind of skip to the finish line? Why don't we skip to the front? Because I'm going to tell you, here's what's going to happen. When you build this habit and you begin to honor and consistently take care of your body in the gym, out of the gym, the yoga mat, the studio, in the kitchen, whatever, the cascading effect of other benefits, of other forms of love, of self-love that you have not yet been honoring and respecting and making habits around are going to just pop up. And they are going to light you up in ways that are just byproducts of working out. I was like, why don't we just work on that? Like, what's going on? Like, what? Yeah, we're going to work on form, but why is it taking you so much convincing just to get here? What is going on? Let's backtrack that. And when I would take off Coach Chase hat and put on just human Chase hat, it's just like everything just unfolded for them. They're like, okay, I'm gonna come down off this pedestal that you think I'm on. I do have some answers. I have a lot more answers probably than you right now in this category. But you know what? I've been where you are. I've been physically broken. I've been emotionally broken, spiritually broken. And I've been in places to where I can come up with every bullshit excuse or legitimate excuse to not do the things that I said I was going to do. But more importantly, to not go down this path of self-love or even think that I was worthy of it. That just so happens to come in the form of exercise as like the gateway drug, right? So I was like, why don't we just get there? And so when I would start to talk to my clients and my peers and people about like, all right, what do you want to do? Do you want this workout program or do you want to go for a walk? You want to go for a walk? Cool. We need to do it for X amount of time, X amount of days. I'll go with you. Are you lonely? How's your emotional health? Do you have a support system? Are you going outside? Are you getting indoors? Okay. Maybe not getting enough vitamin D. Are you staying hydrated? How's your sleep? What did you used to do during this time? I'll never forget, I had this one patient, and the barrier for her to do any form of exercise, we came to realize months later, was because anytime she would go do something physical, she used to do it with her husband, and he passed away. Oddly enough, from ALS, the same disease that my father passed away from. And the second that I shared that with her, we both just started crying. Because it was at that moment, she realized consciously and subconsciously the barriers to entry, also the lies that she was telling herself. And I mean, there's a lot to go through in loss. But when we both kind of realized that we both had been through that loss, but ultimately going to a yoga class, going on a walk meant her doing it alone and not with her husband. She's like, that's what I need to work on. Then we'll get to the yoga mat. Then we'll get to these other things. Gives me goosebumps talking about it again. But
no, and that's a beautiful story. But that's the truth, right? Because human beings don't want to be uncomfortable. We want the pill, red pill, blue pill, green pill, doesn't matter. Oh, I can take this pill and I could be skinny and shredded and sexy and hot. Awesome, give it to me. Or I can go on this program and be skinny, shredded, sexy, and hot, but it'll take me months? No, thank you. But the truth is like, but what are you resisting? Because what you resist persists. And what is keeping you from actually doing the habits? Because once you start doing the habits and putting it into your life, it becomes second nature, like breathing and eating and bathing and all these things we want to do.
We know this on the other side.
Yeah. So it's great that you figured out like that early on, because sometimes the conversations I had with my clients when I was training them, it wasn't even about that. I got to the point of like, well, we're in here kicking butt at the gym. Like, I know you'll put in the work, but you put on 5 pounds. What are you doing at home? And what's the trigger that's making you eat that? Or whatever the case is. And like, that's the meat and potatoes. That's the whole point. Like, how do we do more of that for ourselves and for other people?
I think that's a part of, especially in like the health and fitness and wellness industry, in the coach client, the trainer client, whatever relationship, that's, I think, the part that we more often than not forget, or we're lying to ourselves and we don't think matters as much. And again, I personally believe, I've been in the health and fitness and wellness industry now for like 12 years. That is like, that's it. And so that's what I meant when I say, hey, let's just get to the finish line. Not in like, once you get here and we work on this, like everything else just magically unfolds and you've got the body of your dreams and the health of your dreams. But like the light bulb moment, like we need to get you there. Let's have that realization first, or at least work on that more, or just at all, honestly. The mental and emotional side, the human side of taking care of the physical self, like that is the secret sauce. And anybody will tell you, you know, like once you have your first kind of physical fitness breakthrough, like your first, I never thought I would lift that weight. I never thought I could lift a weight. I never thought I would last a full 45 minutes at F45, whatever. That is imprinted on you forever. There's something that unlocks in you like, holy shit, I am woman, hear me roar. I am man, hear me roar. I'm capable. But also it's like, again, this kind of self-feeding cycle of like, I said I was going to do it. I did it. I can do it again. And that you take that home with you. if you're aware enough to think on that stuff. And hopefully you've got the community or a coach or a trainer that can remind you, that can cue you. Because if I'm working with you in a session and like we crush it, we have a great workout, and like I'm only focusing on your form, your technique, the weight, the meal plan, the whatever, and I disregard everything else that happens when you walk out of that door, the other 23 hours, I might as well have not done anything with you, because you're going to go out there and it's just going to unravel.
Yeah. And I want to pause you right there, because that's the most important thing, because you have no idea what your person's doing 23 hours out of the 24 hours in the day that we have, and you can't control it. But if you create those habits and are actually looking at, how can I make this change for this person where they don't need me? I think part of it, and the things I see in the health and wellness space is the fear. It's driven by money, and they're like, well, I know I need them to continue paying me, so I need to put them through a workout that's going to make them puke and lie in the corner dead, because then they know, oh wow, this works. He knows how they're
Dying
training
is the
me.
only marker for
She knows
success.
exactly, right? That whole puking in the corner is just not the right measure. And just realizing, and I think it's out of fear and scarcity. And I'm not saying like there is importance to form and all that, but like the first thing is like, how do we get you in the door again the next day?
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, when you're overcorrecting form and keeping them super light and all this, then you're now training them out of fear because you don't want to injure them and get sued. So it's like, I think a lot of it revolves around, if you're in that scarcity, fear, money mode, are you really going to be the best trainer for this person? And why are you really doing this? Is it for the love of it? Is it for the connection of the people? But I think the most important is the other 23 hours. The elephant in the room is like, how can I help them mentally? And at the end of the day, if you get them past that, they're going to pay you for the rest of your life training them, or until you fire them anyway.
Yeah. That's the secret right there. That's how you get to never need to like consistently build periodized programming in your business model, because, you know, maybe to a certain degree, they might not need you, but to have that rapport with somebody that is going to be beyond accountability, but to push through fear.
It's a safe space.
Exactly, man. You know, I love that you said fear too, because I think we can't talk about love and not talk about fear at the same time. And when I think about my journey, my story, and especially, you know, professionally, now as a podcaster, or back then, you know, as a health coach, the only times I've ever gotten better, my opinion, or progressed professionally, like when I went from undergrad to grad school, and I think if I went, like technically I have like 13 or 15 letters that would go after my name with like all the certifications and all the shit. I'm like, I got to do that. And in pursuit, I think this is love. I think this is progression. But I was basing it all off of external markers for success. And I was honestly, if I'd be really honest with myself now, going down a path that I didn't even think I was fully convinced of was my path. It's like, cool, I'm good at it. I got the degrees and certifications. People like me. I'm getting promoted, all this stuff. But like, why does it still hurt so much? What am I afraid of? What am I afraid of choosing? Which certification do I want? You know, if I had gone down, let me get a heart math certification instead of, you know, a health coach, whatever, what would that have done professionally? Probably not as much then, but personally it would have been everything I needed. And I bring this up because the progression that I've had and any jump I've had in success, personally, professionally, has only ever come from when I not only acknowledge fear, but stop myself dead in my tracks. And I had to choose for the moment fear. I had to choose fear. I had to choose to honor it and go, I'm not fucking ignoring you anymore. I always liken it to, if you ever watched Dexter, The Dark Passenger. Fear, especially fear of facing this immense loss that I had in my life, the death of my father, was my dark passenger. And over those years, I just thought if I just keep going forward, which was oddly enough his mantra, ever forward, let's just go, like that's going to be good enough. If I'm in pursuit of more and better, only good things can come, right? Well, it's like this dark passenger was in the backseat laughing the whole time. And he was growing. He was bulking. It was bulking season for fear. That's for damn sure. And the moment that after being called out by then girlfriend, now wife, after having months of the worst panic attacks, blackouts, almost near seizure experiences and responses to trauma and death. So like my physical self was deteriorating, even though I was the strongest and leanest I'd ever been. I had to consciously choose, stop. It's like your parents when you're yelling in the car. Like I had to stop the car, turn around, and I didn't even know what to say at the time. Because when you're facing that fear, especially if it's like a death or a loss or whatever your fear is, it's so new, it's so foreign. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't keep doing this. And so I decided to turn and run towards that. I was like,
that's a big aha moment. Most people don't make that choice.
No. And if I didn't, Ruben, I shit you not, I don't think I would be here alive. I made that choice to run towards it. And for me, that meant, you're here. I acknowledge you. I'm going to figure you out. I'm going to figure out how to live with you, because you're not going anywhere. That death, that loss, that pain, that memory, it will always be there. There's not a thing that I can do to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So I need to learn how to live with it, live with you. And the moment I did that, my life forever changed, because then I was in pursuit of ultimately better loving myself and understanding true love, because love does not disregard fear. Love does not ignore the bad just for the sake of the good.
Correct.
I chose fear. I dove in. I committed myself to it. And it took me years, really years, to get to a place now to where I can actually even have this conversation. Years ago, I would be a totally different human being. And in my choice of facing fear and understanding it and learning how to live with it, man, love grew out of it in ways I did not even know was possible. I never thought this would be possible, to have conversations like this now, and to actually get to a point to where I can reflect back on the thing that literally almost got me to not want to live anymore, to not take my own life, but to actively put myself in pursuit of death, the soldier's death on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't even know that Chase anymore. And I go back in certain experiences now, and therapies and different modalities and meditation and psychedelic work, to actually like go revisit that Chase and just like love him now. Because my dad's good. We're good.
Yeah.
Like now I'm working on that Chase.
No, that's amazing. You know, and we talk about love and fear and the fact that you brought that up. And I say, you know, in the world, we're shown a lot of fear, and fear isn't a bad thing. Like it saves us, fight or flight, you know, survival, all these things. And sometimes I'm like, use fear as your compass. I think it's when we use fear to ignore all those things, right? Like, oh, the world is burning. Let me hide on my couch and become agoraphobic and never go out again because I'm going to die. That's
What does
different.
it all mean, Basil?
Yeah, like that's the sense of like why I'm saying choose love and look at the world through the lens of love. Doesn't mean that shooting didn't happen. It just means like, how can I show up in this world to maybe prevent that from happening again, because I saw someone on the street and I gave them love or acknowledged them as a human being. Just who knows what that is. And then just doing it to yourself, right? How many of us don't actually do that to ourselves?
Yeah.
Hey, this Ruben over here that's scared in the corner, like, let me go talk to him and fix him.
Yeah.
Right? This Chase, like, you dealt with your dark passenger, but there's still dark Chase. And it's okay. We all have those things. So
Yeah, I have not been able to kick this guy out yet. I will never be able to get rid of him, like I said.
no, he'll get a little less dark, but it's always going to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, they go from just taking up the whole back seat to you know, maybe a little like bobblehead thing on the back dashboard.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And that's the truth. And there's going to be moments in your life that dark person's going to become the size of the Incredible Hulk. Like, you don't know. It's whatever happened. But now we have doing the work, having the conversations. We have tools to shift us out of that quicker, to acknowledge it, to be like, oh, this is happening. How do I affect it? And that's why these conversations are important. And I think these conversations between men are important because we're the ones that hide it, suppress it, and be like, yeah, I've got an army of dark shadows behind me, but I have to be tough. I can't cry. I can't say that I'm hurting. Like, you know?
And especially for my veterans out there, I think there's a whole nother level to keeping this kind of stuff quiet. I served 03 to 09. And from my experience, I can tell you, getting certain kind of appointments at sick call raised attention. If you went down a certain hallway in the hospital, the mental health side, psychology, psychiatry, things most likely were not going to be as good for you in terms of like potential promotion, recommendation for promotion, things like that. And I'm not saying, you know, that was all over the place. That was definitely my perception, but that was also the real world for two brothers of mine that ultimately could not deal with that transition back out to civilian life and their own experiences in the military, ultimately taking their own life. And you know, it honestly, anyone who's gone through a loss of suicide, I think immediately it's just like, oh my God, what else could I have done? I should have picked up on their cues on the phone. Like that was weird. Like I should have said this, I should have done that. I should have been there for them more. And you know, maybe, but ultimately they did what they did. And my goal now, especially for my own sake and sharing these experiences and talking more and more about, you know, if you want to get stronger in life, you want to get stronger in the gym, go to fucking therapy. Write down your feelings in a journal. Talk to your partner. Call your mom. Talk to a stranger. Honestly, for some of us, meeting someone on the street and unloading, be careful, unloading, you know, your pain of
Don't
that
project.
day, exactly, can be the best thing for you. Maybe that's your safe space more than like a family or a loved one or something. But we have to have these conversations. We're all eager to talk about crush it at work. This is the best workout. I got the best body doing this program. I had the best sex in my life doing this stuff. I had all these other things. You know, what about here and here? What about the head and the heart? And at 35, I'm 37 now, for the first time ever, I turned down the head. And I didn't even need to turn up the heart, because I think the heart, living from a place of love, is always there. It's just we are suppressing it out of safety, security, fear, whatever. Or society tells us that, no, you can't talk about that shit. If you do, bad things are going to happen. You're not going to be able to go this way. What if I don't want to go that way? At 35, I quieted the mind, listened to the heart, and I've just been operating out of love every damn day since, man.
Well, kudos to you for that, for sure. And you're going to continue doing that work and choosing it, though, right? It's not just like, oh, if I turn on the switch, let's go. You got to keep turning it on.
I now, for the first time in 37 years, feel like I'm living, like I'm Chase. I'm living my life, and it is only out of a place of love and in the direction of love. And it's you know, so many different ways I could look back in my life and go, you know, I think anybody could. When you have these kind of moments of awareness, I'm like, oh, wow, like I now think differently. I view the world differently. Maybe for the first time, I view and see, like, Ruben, I see you. Chase, like, look in the mirror, I see you. Just acknowledging that can be what we need, of course, to take action and to move forward in life. But I hope no one, and I definitely did this quite a few times, I hope we don't do that and then turn back on, immediately cast shame on the version of ourselves yesterday or last month or last year. Like, punish ourselves, like, emotionally, like yell at these memories, yell at past versions, hold shame or build shame and resentment, because that you're kind of like undoing, I think, a little bit of what you just did to move you forward. But that's the beauty of love, you know, like love can't exist in shame. Love can't exist in resentment.
Yeah. No, shame's a whole thing to unpack. Like Brene Brown goes into it. Like she's got some great stuff on it. But the whole going back and having shame or guilt or negative feelings against who you were, no, thank who you were, because it led to who you are.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
to make a simpler current with culture and cancel culture and all that, like when people go back 15 years and look at someone's tweet from 15 years ago and say, cancel them, they sent this 15 years ago. Why don't we actually look back and like, oh, 15 years ago, they said this. Oh, 5 years after that, oh, they shifted like this. Oh, another 5 years. Oh, now, oh, why don't we look at like, wow, this human has developed. He has gone, or she has gotten closer to love, or like, this is why we want these humans. And let's show our frailty. Let's show how
Maybe
fragile we
that
are.
tweet, but but we don't need to blast them, cancel them.
No, I mean, if you said something really bad, like go delete it and protect yourself. But I'm just saying, it's like sometimes we go back, like we people blow up, and then you look back at their cancel them. They said this or did this, and I'm like, yeah, but that's not who they are now.
Why are we so quick to want to bring people down?
Exactly. Well, because we're broken inside.
Yeah.
So like going back to what you just said, like let's celebrate who we were, embrace who we are, and look forward to who we're becoming. And hopefully we're becoming better people and we're on the right path of, that way. But I mean, we could always take a turn. Something could happen, another death could happen, an injury or whatever that can take us and derail us. But I think it's so important because and
that's the beauty. I love what you just said about like the past, present, future kind of realm. Not to get like too meta, I'm definitely not versed enough to like actually kind of describe this stuff, but what I think the listener and everybody can relate to, if you just take a moment to think about who you are right here, right now, like who I am right here, right now, sitting on this show with you, is also every past version of myself. Every version that was doing great, that I loved, resonated with, every version that I hated, every period of my life that I was in pain and suffering, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, every breakup, every promotion, every degree, every move, everything ever. Like that is still here. And the beauty is like, if we can recognize that, make peace with it, that is the future self we get to build. So here's a moment in every moment in time to recollect every past version, honor that, respect it, because you can't change any of that. But that is your moment. That is your opportunity to choose the future self that you're going to build. And do I want to take a step forward in life and to, have more guilt and shame and resentment about something that, was really out of my control? It's so cliche, but things happen for you, not to you. The example that is the greatest example I can keep going back to is just this loss of my father, because it left a hole the size of the universe in my heart. And I actually just had this realization the other day. If we want to get specific, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is diagnosed, is classified when people endure something, a horrible traumatic event, usually like a life-threatening to them or a very close experience, and is the inability to shut that off in recollection, in memory, so on and so forth. My PTSD, my dark passenger, my pain and suffering did not happen the moment that I was home from the hospital after staying up for 2 days straight with my father to go home and try to sleep it off for a little bit, when I got the call that, hey, Chase, actually, you just missed it. He died. That it didn't happen when I got that call. It didn't happen when my world went black and I banged my fist up against my bedroom wall at home and I screamed out to God, to the universe in anger, just the most primal scream. Like I can still feel my throat getting sore from it now. It didn't happen at that moment. It happened the second after, when I chose not to be with it. When I chose not to sit with it, when I chose not to feel with it. A family friend came and picked me up from the house. The rest of my family was already over there at the hospital. Ruben, I didn't cry. I shut it down. I suppressed it. I stared out of the window for the 15, 20-minute drive to the hospital to go see my dead father.
It just went numb.
That is the moment that my trauma won. That is the moment that fear won. That is the moment that I subconsciously let fear win over love. And of course, what 19-year-old who's going through that, or really any of us going through an event like that, maybe is going to have the wherewithal to go, oh, opportunity, love. Like,
yeah, and we don't have the tools yet, right?
Exactly. But if I firmly believe now, I mean, who knows? But like, if I at that moment had chosen to like chase sit here, deal with this, be with this, or even not deal with it, just be with it. I honestly think that the imprint of pain and suffering and running away from that for the next 10, 12 years probably wouldn't have happened, or not to the length that it did. Because what I did after that, what I thought was progress and healing, was just, I was getting further and further away from that. But I was just adding a link to a chain that was the ball of everything that I wanted from my life, but was incapable of having because it was anchoring me down.
And it got heavier and heavier the more links you.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah, so true. But in these events, like, my hope now and what I really try to work on now, and my message for everybody, you know, I say to live a life ever forward, is just to have these moments of awareness in the suck. Stub my toe, yes. Got an injury, okay. Here's an opportunity to focus on recovery. Going through financial struggles, okay. Here's an opportunity to buckle down, to go back to basics. You know, what do I need to do? Honestly, what do I need in life? If we can get better at choosing that when these moments come up, even if it's just for a split second, even if it's bullshit, even if we're like, I'm just going to say it, but I don't want to say it. I think there is a level to which we are not letting that imprint on us as heavily. And we're doing our future self a favor. And we're honoring the mental and emotional self, even spiritual, I think, in a way that you and I both know will then go on to serve the physical self as well. And we can do a lot of things with the physical self to serve the mental and emotional side, but in everything we do, it's a choice of love over fear, like you said, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's not much for me to say. You're just unpacking this beautifully and giving some great examples. But it's true, you know, if we look back, do you want to be 65 and still dealing with that passenger? Do you want to be 40 with it? Do you want to keep resenting and regretting it? Do you want to be the 14-year-old boy or girl that's stuck because you got pantsed in class or whatever it was? Or do you want to deal with it? Because life is very short. I say life is a sprint at a marathon at a sprinter's pace, because you're going to sprint through it, but it is long. But it is short. It's like, it's confusing, and we don't know when we're going to end it.
What is time? Yeah.
But that's all we have. And if we continue to resist, it's going to continue to persist. And one day, maybe we have the aha moment to choose, but is it on your deathbed?
Yeah.
Or did you never have that moment? So it's like, hopefully we can have these conversations and continue having these talks around, you know, and hopefully one person's like, wow, I'm suffering because of this. Let me go do something about it.
And suffering is, you know, it's all our individual experience, but also I think it's pretty subjective. Like
it's very much you and your chemistry and how you handle things. Yeah.
But also, like, let's get real. You're suffering more often than not, unless you're quite literally on your deathbed right here, right now, there is someone who has it worse than you.
Yes.
And I give so much credit every time I tell my story of, like, again, physically what I went through sucked. In and out of a wheelchair, walker, cane, like all that shit for a year and a half. But whenever I could or had to go to formation, I was in the special medical hold unit. Luckily, it just so happened I was already stationed in the city where they have this med hold unit. And so I just got transferred there. And then pretty much everyone else to the left and right of me, they were coming back from theater, no arms, no legs, gauze head to toe, 3rd-degree burns. I was getting glimpses every time I was in formation at the time of what could have been. Chase, if you actually did make it downrange, that could be you.
And put yourself in harm's way, because that was kind of your plan, right? So,
and so many of these men and women, mostly men in my unit, not all of them, but many of them were laughing and joking and talking about the future and doing all of these things. And I would just catch myself, like, yeah, I'm pissed and this sucks, but, like, you know what? I've got my legs. I've got my arms. I don't have 3rd-degree burns. It's going to take me some time, but I'm going to get back to my normal life, or whatever that is for me again. And I give so much credit to those people. I couldn't even tell you any of their names right now, because most of the time we weren't even in uniform. Like, they saved my life. some of the people along my journey that have saved my life. Because that would have been a year and a half in that experience of going down even darker holes. I was literally getting delivered to my home like half-gallon or quarter-gallon jugs of like Percocet, Vicodin. I was going through a lot of pain, and like that gave me a whole other slew of problems. I was addicted to these things. I didn't even know it. It's funny, but not funny. Like, I'm one of the only people I know who served during OIF and OEF that was medically retired, has PTSD, and suffered a traumatic brain injury that didn't all happen because I was downrange.
Yeah.
The Vicodin, I was overprescribed Vicodin. I was hooked, like I said, I didn't even know it. I was on so much this one time, I was like just out of it. Somehow came out of my bed, was like day walking, night walking, whatever, on my cane, fell, hit the dresser, hit my head so hard, gave myself a TBI, passed out. Next thing I know, I'm like being resuscitated. Fucking ambulance is being called, and I'm back in the hospital again. So I mean, I say all that just to kind of like, I can joke about it now. Like physically, what I went through was a lot, but there's always going to be someone that has it worse. And I would share some of those stories with a lot of my clients and, you know, other people over the years as to, oh, like I couldn't make it to the gym, you know, like I just couldn't sleep well last night.
We all got reasons.
Oh, my back is so sore, you know, but like, yeah, I remember having a sore back after being in bed for a week and having someone come turn me. I can go to the gym now.
Yeah. No. We all have reasons, and that's true. I think we would live a more fulfilled life realizing how good we have it. And not in the sense of gloating or bragging, but it's like...
That's a mindset shift. We have to choose that.
Yeah. What if we were born in the slums of India? And at what level of the slums? Like the bottom with no clean water? What if you were in the sticks or the bush in Australia or Africa? Like, I was born in LA. First generation, my parents were born in Colombia. They came here, but I was born in LA. Like, I thank God all the time, like for where I was born, who I was, but like all that, like we just have gratitude for where we are. And also then we were born human. What if we were born horseflies or cockroaches or rats? Like,
I've been a couch once during a psychedelic psychotherapy journey once.
That's interesting.
I'm a couch.
Are you a butt guy? that's where it took me. That's where it took me.
Is my heaven just being a couch where I get sat on all the time?
I mean, that's what I would think. I'm like, yeah, that'd be a good idea. It could be a couch, so I can get all these. Anyway, there's also some gross butts that are sitting and probably farting.
Hey, you can't win them all.
That's
can't
true,
win them all, man.
But let's shift a little bit because, you're with your wife now. Was it 6 years?
Married 6, together almost 10.
Okay, so she was going through some of this with you. How did some of that journey affect through this? Obviously, she's your ride or die, and she stuck around with you. That's a good woman, good keeper. I've met her. She's great. But like, were there ebbs and flows in your relationship and how you were dealing with your dark passenger and then trying to manage a relationship?
Yeah. Like a lot of those guys in my old unit, and like a lot of other people in my journey, my wife has saved my life. Probably at like the peak of my avoidance of fear and running away from all my problems. But on the outside, like I said, it was the strongest I'd ever been, the leanest I'd ever been. Just finished was in grad school, just gotten promoted. So like outside looking in, I had my shit together. That's
why she caught her eye real quick that way.
Actually, that's when she left me.
Oh.
She was the one in our relationship who could have radical honesty and truth about, really, I think, I agree with her kind of now, is that sometimes, especially in relationships, like love isn't enough. Love is great and it's important to have and we should all strive for it. But like, especially in a relationship, like, is that going to be the thing that is always going to carry you through? And she was having these kind of realizations with herself and our relationship before we got married, because in her mind, like, and she shared this with me, like, yeah, Chase, you're it for me. Like, I want to marry you, but she personally was going through some growing pains and some stuff, but honestly, like she saw all this stuff in me of what I was not dealing with and how it was spilling over and how I was just not being the version myself that she knew was in there, despite being in love with me and wanting to get married and all these things. Because she knew, I absolutely agree with her. It's like, Chase, if you don't get this stuff figured out now, or even just please just address it, you're going to self-destruct. And then you're going to blow up, and then we're going to blow up, and then, you know, family dynamics, all this stuff. And that was the bitter pill that I had to swallow. We'd been together just like a couple of years at that time. And oddly enough, I thought I had it in the bag, man. I was like, oh yeah, I'm probably going to propose later. And she's like, bye.
Yeah.
And it all happened. I'll never forget. There was this one distinct moment. We were back kind of like working things out. She was over at my apartment at the time. I just moved up to Northern Virginia. We're watching this movie and this death scene happened. And it was just like my father. I remember them taking the sheet in the hospital bed, pulling it over his head. And next thing I know, I'm like on the back of the couch, hyperventilating. I'm like coming to. She's like resuscitating me almost in a way. Thank God she's a healthcare worker. She knew what to do. I had just the most extreme panic attack of my life. And that moment with her, she's over top of me, bringing me back to life, just going, this is what I'm talking about. Like, this shit makes me emotional. So like that's the stuff that I had the most control over. Like if I, Chase, just take a day off in the gym, go back to therapy, man, or just like open up, just tell her these things. She's like, this is what I'm talking about. I love you. You don't love yourself enough to work on this. And I want you to be around, and I want you to love yourself the way that I love you. And I want us to have the love that it's gonna, like, this work is gonna be necessary for us to have that love.
Yeah.
It rocked me to my core, man. And that's honestly, that awakening put me on my path to, oddly enough, everything I'm doing now. Like, I picked up a self-help book, listened to my first podcast. I actually realized that my life for the first time was worth fighting for, because I was fighting for her. I was fighting for us. And it wasn't like, I'm going to do this to win you. Like, I think that is a weird form of love that is not real love. Like,
You can't buy it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love you so much, and I recognize that you love me so much that I need to love myself as much, if any of that makes sense. But
no, it makes sense. I bet I was in a relationship once where she didn't love herself. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, she was a 12. Like, everything was great, but that isn't enough. Like, and you can't love someone so much to the point that they receive the love. Like, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can try, but
don't we? We try.
We try, but it doesn't matter.
No.
So, like, I can relate with it being a little bit in her shoes. That obviously didn't work out, but and it wasn't meant to work out. But it was a learning lesson that I still carry to this day that I remember. So that's amazing.
Love is the good fight, isn't it? It's the best fight.
It is, and it's true. Love is not enough. It's not the only thing. It's very important. And there's different levels of lust, right?
Yeah.
Eros, erotic love. That's why we get into relationships. Oh, you hot, I'm hot. Let's be hot together. But
And
like, then there's
even better.
and then there's everything else that goes from there.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I know you've heard in another episode, like, love is a verb, and it's a choice, and it's a way of life, and it's the glue. It could be the glue in between the things to help keep it together, but that's not what keeps it together. You know, you still have to have all those things. You know,
Love is like the concrete poured in between every stone that two masons are building, and they're not talking to each other. It's like, oh yeah, this works. We can stack bricks. We can make shapes. But then ultimately you realize, like, what the hell have we been building? Like, this is a room that goes nowhere. The window is this big. I mean, you're not talking to each other. I mean, that's a whole other aspect of relationships. You know, it's love, absolutely. But if you're not communicating with yourself and the other person, like, what are you doing? You're just making so much more work for yourself and them, which is not fair to them.
And if you want to last 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, like, I didn't get married to get divorced. Like I'm like, yo, this is the person I'm going to do this with, and let's do it as long as we can. I mean, obviously, if there's something terrible that happens, that's like, okay, I don't know, and I don't know what that could be, but like, you put in the work, you do the reps, you try to figure it out, you try to be patient with each other, and just realize like, my wife is not my enemy. Why do I get defensive? That's my thing.
Seriously, man. Yeah, I love how you said love is a verb. You know, I've heard you say that a million times, but it's just so good to hear that again. Like, love is not enough. Love is not a noun. Love is not a singular action. Love is not an arrival point. Love is the realization of the rest of your life's work with yourself, for yourself. And if you're fortunate enough to have a person to share that life with, to love and have them love you back, I mean, that's the next step, and that's the best part. But it's not the answer. It's not a finish line. It's not everything. It's the only thing I think that matters, but it's not going to be your everything every time.
No, that's true. And you know, there's a saying, be, do, and have. So if we can be love, we can do love, and we can have love. A lot of us want to just have it. And then we know we can do the things to have it, but we don't even realize, wait, I have to be it. And we forget it. Like, wait, how do I be? What's a way of being? How can I, like, we can't even be still. How can we be love?
All the doing, I think a lot of us, and I've definitely been there in past relationships, we think doing X amount of doing or certain types of doing yields love. Oh, we did this significant event in our relationship. I did this significant thing in my life. That means they love me. I love myself. It's been X amount of time. We moved in together, got a key to my apartment, whatever. You know, I've met their family. We've done X amount of vacations. Like, oh, okay, then, all right, I guess we should get engaged, or I guess we should move in, or guess we should. Like, no. If you're thinking, if you're defining and justifying love, and your starting point starts with should, I would really challenge you to revisit that thought. There should never be a should with love. It should just be the most obvious thing. Well, maybe I shouldn't say obvious, but
it should be a want. I want to, want to, feels right.
That's
right.
it. And
It's
that's what
not
it was
like
with her. She's like, I want you, but I don't need you.
that's huge there too. That I think in relationships is huge. We should not have to need our partner. We could feel like we need them. That's a different thing. But like, for me to operate, I don't need my wife. I want my wife to be part of my life, and it amplifies me living my life, but I don't need her to operate. She doesn't need me. We complement each other. So right there, how you said that it's so important. I think we forget that. And that's why I think a lot of things go wrong. And an example I can give, let's just say it's a crude example, but the rich guy with the woman that, I don't know, let's just say there's not a lot of value. Let's not nitpick this, people. It's just like, he doesn't have a lot of value other than money. But like, then she gets into this position, and now it is a need thing, because it's like, well, I don't have any skills. I never went and did anything for myself. I'm surviving off of someone else's money.
Or even the other way around, a guy and a girl. Like, she's the loaded one, and
it doesn't matter. I wanted to,
person B.
Yeah. But the point is, like, if you put yourself in a position where you need to be needed or need things, then that's on you. It's not on the other person. I think we forget, like, we put ourselves in those positions.
And then when we hear that, we think, this isn't love. How could they ever say that if they actually loved me? That's the most difficult part of it all, is just letting go of what we think love is supposed to look like, feel like, sound like. And, you know, love's a motherfucker sometimes.
It is. It's that's why I'm always saying, like, it is not easy. You know, if it was easy, everyone could paint love on a wall and we'd be living in a magical world, and it'd be a beautiful magical world, but that's just not that's not the truth.
Well, that's the world I know you're out there building, at least trying to, and I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah, we're creating a culture of love.
Yeah, baby.
So, you know, we're at that point. Hey, thank you for sharing all of that. I knew some stuff. I didn't know all of that. So, like, going in and getting vulnerable.
Thank you for bringing it out. You know, I've done several interviews to this point. I've told my story many times to other people and myself, but honestly, every time is totally different because we have a different relationship and we're in a different space, and I'm in a different place in my life today than I was yesterday. So like, thank you for making this container to pull this stuff out.
I'm receiving. You're welcome. And you know what's coming next.
I do. I've seen this movie before.
So Chase, how do you define living a life through love?
I've had some time to think about this because we've talked about doing this for a little while, and of course seeing the show and all that. But I think how I'll answer it today is really just taking a step back, detaching from those three words: live through love. At all times of living, there is love. Just to what degree are we going to choose to go through it or not? Love is always present.
Yeah.
The moment that seemingly my world came to a crashing halt when I got that phone call about my father, and everything went black and dark and the pain set in, and I ignored that for the next 15 years, that was love. Because without that horrible, unfortunate loss, I would not be where I am today. So many positive things have happened. Quite literally, Ruben, the lives of millions of other people have been touched because of the work and the words that he started and instilled in my family. But nobody wants to hear that. Like, you're going to have to lose the person you love most. But if you pay attention in that loss, if you truly live and stay present in that moment, you will realize you can walk through this moment in love and carrying on love, especially their love in a loss situation. So, I mean, it's really just an understanding of what those three words are and choosing that at all times. In life, as we are living, there is love through us in every action.
Yeah.
It's always there. It's always there. Just sometimes we miss it. We're a little late to the party, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, we've said it before. It's just life is happening for us. Life is happening with us. We can be spectators and sit on the sidelines and say it's happening to us. But like, it's our job to look at the lessons. Like, there was a reason for that to happen to you. And luckily you found your way out of it and look back and look how it's fueling you now and moving you forward. But you could still be stuck there.
And I was for a long time.
And
a lot of people are.
A lot of challenges, whether you're religious or spiritual or whatever, like God testing you, the universe testing you, Mother Earth testing you, whatever you believe in testing you. Like, life is here to make us more resilient and to become better.
If we can flip that switch, I love how you shared about how, you know, love isn't easy most of the time. If we can flip that switch and just try to begin to understand or change our definition and understanding of love, I honestly believe we will see it way more often. Because instead we're looking for, love, like pretty colors, art, feelings, rainbows, unicorns, like happy ending.
Valentine's Day. Yeah.
But it's also in that phone call that you never want to get in the middle of the night. It's also in that injury, that significant loss. It's in losing your job. It's in life not going the way that you wanted to or had a plan for, you know? That is still love. So if we can choose to try to understand the dynamic of love more and change our definition and relationship with it, we're going to see it way more often. At least I have.
Yeah. No, and I always forget the name of the phenomenon, but like, let's say you're car shopping. You're like,
Like awareness theory?
Yeah, I want to I want a new BMW. And you just see, wow, everyone has a BMW. Okay, well, I want a gray one. Yeah. There's a million gray ones everywhere. Like,
this color, this
it's just because now what you're aware of. So like, if we're constantly living in fear and looking at the news and believing that that is real life, you're going to walk around and operate that way. Now, if we consistently choose love, knowing that it's not rainbows and unicorns all the time, but like, we're going to see more love in the world. Like, last example as we wrap up is like, whenever I walk by a homeless person, like, trust me, I get the same feelings. Like, look away, don't look, they're going to bother you.
Don't make eye contact.
Yeah, but you know what I do now is I purposely look for eye contact.
Yeah, man.
Like, I'm like, oh, he's hiding under his blanket. Okay. Oh, this. Because I walk to the gym every day and I walk by a ton of homeless people. But when you just give them eye contact, like, I'm not going to give you money. I know what's going to happen. Or most of the time I'm walking in my gym clothes. I don't have money. So, but I can acknowledge you. Like, I see you even for this moment. You're a human being. Smile and move on, or say good morning or something. You acknowledge them as a human. They'll feel like a human.
And if that's the only form of love they get all day, like,
Yeah.
God, that's got to be the best. I mean, hell, sometimes I'll take that. Getting eye contact from somebody, anybody, I'm like, like someone saw me, you know?
Yeah, I wish more of us practice. There's times like, dude, I go through my bouts of like, I want to be antisocial. Like, no, I can't look at another person. I want to look away. But just look at, like, I walk by everyone, I look and I smile. Whether they look back and smile back, I don't know. But at least I did it. Even if I don't want to do it.
Yeah. I love it. And that's for you. Like, it'll help them, but that's for you.
Yeah. That's an us thing.
Love it, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, for sharing, for opening up. And where can everyone find you?
I'm either on the gram or on the microphone, at Chase Chewning on Instagram, chasechewning.com. All my stuff, all my work. The show is called Ever Forward Radio. I kind of mentioned in my story, but Ever Forward, living a life ever forward is my work, is my meaning, my mantra now, but it came from the example set by my father to me and my family growing up. And, again, it's wild to say, like, I'm at a place now and I'm grateful for that loss, because without it, I would not be in such love with my life and what I can do and what I can choose to do every day and what it, has done now for so many other people. So Ever Forward Radio is the platform. You can come check me out anywhere you listen to or watch podcasts.
We'll link it up everywhere as well. Thank you.
This is great, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in to Live Through Love. If you love this episode, you'll love this episode.